When you're making an offer to purchase real estate, it can be a little bit tricky because more often than not, your offer has to be the highest offer that the seller receives in order to actually win the bid. But at the same time, you don't want to offer too much because then you're just overpaying on your bid. So in this video, I'm going to talk about one method that you can use that will virtually guarantee that you are the highest bidder and that you will not overpay when you're trying to buy a house. Hi everyone, my name is Ben and this channel is dedicated to all things personal finance, helping you earn more, spend less, and invest the difference. So let's take a hypothetical scenario where you're trying to buy a house that's worth $250,000 and it's a hot market. You expect that there will be multiple offers. So the seller's real estate agent has already reached out and said, hey, we need your highest and best offer by tomorrow. There's not going to be any bidding wars or anything like that. You get one shot. And basically, whoever has the highest offer, that's who they're going to go with. Now, in a case like that, if they're asking $250,000 and you're expecting multiple offers, how much should you bid? Do you just give a full price offer of $250,000, or do you go a little bit above $250,000 to try to win the bid? But then again, how much above $250,000 should you do? Do you do $252 or $255? What about $260? Like, what's a good bid? Now, maybe you're willing to spend $260, but does that mean that that should be your bid price? Because what if the next highest bidder only bid $252,000? In that case, a bid of $253 probably would have got the job done, in which case you would have overbid by $7,000. That kind of sucks. But instead, you can use what is called an escalation clause, otherwise known as an escalator. Now, in some parts of the country, this method is somewhat often used, and in other parts of the country, this is almost never used. In fact, I've gone to cities where I've talked to real estate agents that have been in the industry for decades, and they've never once used an escalator. So using an escalator clause could give you a significant advantage, especially in some markets. Now, what an escalator clause is at its core it's an addendum to your offer to purchase, and your real estate agent is going to type this up and do all the wording. But essentially what it says is, hey, I'm willing to bid $250,000. That's my bid price. But in the event that I get outbid, my bid automatically is to be increased by, let's just say, $1,000 above what my nearest competitor's bid is, up into a cap of, let's say, $260,000. That's the escalator clause. It automatically escalates your bid, your offer to purchase, above what somebody else bids. So in essence, that is an escalator clause. You offer $250,000, and then if there's a second bid that outdoes you, it automatically triggers your escalation clause, which increases the size of your bid so that you're always outmatching your competitors up until you hit that upper limit, your escalator cap, whatever you set it at. So now if we go back to our previous example, that house that was for sale for $250,000, instead of just bidding straight to the $260,000 and potentially wasting some money, what if instead we just used that escalator clause that I talked about? Now in this case, let's assume that there was one other person that outbid you and they bid $254,000 on this house. In that case, their bid of $254,000 would automatically trigger your escalation clause. And since you are still under your cap of $260,000, it will automatically increase your bid to $255,000, $1,000 above their bid of $254,000. But let's just say there was somebody else and they just loved the house for whatever reason. They had super deep pockets and they offered $265,000 for this house. In that case, even though they outbid you, it would not trigger your escalation clause because you put an upper cap of $260,000. That's the most that you are willing to spend on this house. Now, a couple of tips when you're using the escalator clause. Number one, only, and I repeat, only use an escalator clause if you expect multiple offers on a property. If you think you're going to be the only person bidding on this thing, maybe it's sat on the market for a while or it's just not a real hot market, whatever the case may be, do not use an escalator clause at that point. Just simply submit an offer and wait for their counter offer. The logic behind this is as soon as your seller's real estate agent sees that escalation clause, they know what your upper limit is as far as how much you're willing to spend. So if you just put out a bid of $250 and you're the only bidder, how likely is it that they're just going to be real happy and just accept your offer? They might try to jack the price up a little bit because they already know that you're willing to pay $260. So either they might try to counter and negotiate and raise the price immediately, or they might play hardball after your offer is accepted with any kind of repairs that you're interested in trying to get done. After the inspection report comes in and you try to get all kinds of stuff fixed, they might just play a hardball and just not fix anything because they already know that you've got an extra 10 grand sitting around that you are willing to put into this house, so they may not want to fix anything. So always keep that ace up your sleeve. Never let the opposing team know the most that you're willing to spend unless you absolutely have to. And another tip when using an escalator clause, make sure the amount of increase that you're using is sufficient in order to actually get the job done. And this is going to depend on your market, the price point of the property that you're trying to buy. I mean, let's be real. You could theoretically use an escalator of a single dollar. Like, hey, I will outbid my competitor by $1. Now, yes, you're technically the highest bidder, but what kind of signals is that sending to the seller? It sounds like you're super stingy and you're just going to be a pain in the butt to try to work with and close on this house. So make sure that the escalation is of high enough value that the seller is realistically going to want to work with you as opposed to somebody else. You don't want to look super cheap, but at the same time, you don't want to overspend. So I would recommend usually nothing less than $1,000 as an escalator clause unless you're buying some super cheap property out in the middle of nowhere. But at the same time, if you're in a super expensive location, maybe New York City or San Francisco where properties routinely sell for over $1 million, if your escalator is only for $1,000, like what's $1,000 on $1 million property? Like it has to be significantly higher than $1,000 if you're trying to buy some higher end real estate. So make sure your escalation clause is priced appropriately to try to actually get the seller's attention. So there you guys go. Using an escalator clause can virtually guarantee that you are the highest bidder up to your cap, but you also don't overbid when trying to purchase a property. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, give the video a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm, and as always, I'll see you all again next time. Thanks.